Hong Kong Direct is your weekly racing roundup full of news, views, interviews, previews and special guests. And coming up on the show today, we sit down with Steve Railton. Had his final day with the Jockey Club on Wednesday night as acting Chief Stipendiary Steward at Happy Valley. We know him better as Secretary of the Licensing Committee. He sits down with Ed Sadler to talk about the last decade or so. And we're just about at halfway through the season as well. So we've got our mid-season report as far as the jockeys and the trainers are concerned. Casper Found is currently leading the trainers title race and he's pretty happy about it as well. Great to have your company for the show. I'm Andrew Jeune. Please say I'm joined by the racing editor of the South China Morning Post in Tom Biddington. And Tom, Joe Moreira on Wednesday night Happy Valley had a night out and, well, he's well ahead in the jockeys title race and he's well ahead of the curve as well as we approach halfway. Yeah, he's riding amazingly well. Could be on pace to break his record of 170 winners in a season. He's got support from the two biggest stables in Hong Kong and, yeah, riding in great form. So it'll be great to see what he does in the second half of the season. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the second half of the show as well. The second half of the month, we're looking forward to our next Group 1 races. It's the Gold Cup, Queen's Silver Jubilee Cup, and the second leg of the 4-year-old series as well. Excellent proposal, was excellent in the mile. Is he now the one to beat for the 4-year-olds? And Golden 60 up in trip, that'll be interesting as well in the Gold Cup. Yeah, for sure. Excellent proposal, certainly the horse to beat at the moment in the 4-year-old series. It still looks a very even bunch, so we'd love to see how it plays out. And Golden 60 stepping up to 2,000 metres, that's really interesting. Obviously, he's going to go against Furore and Exultant. It's going to be a fascinating race, that one, but I think Golden 60 is the class horse here, and it'd be great to see him winning. Yeah, it certainly would be. It'd be interesting to see he lines up over the 1,400 metres in the Queen's Silver Jubilee Cup. And with that in mind, we'll finish with a classic replay from 2015. That was Able Friend. First up, though, Steve Railton finished his tenure here with the Jockey Club on Wednesday night, and he had a chance to sit down with Ed Sadler earlier this week to talk about his time here over the last 10 or 11 years.
Well, it's a pleasure to be joined this morning at Sha Tin by Steve Railton. Steve, thanks for your time this morning. Let's go back to the beginning. Your father used to train and own a number of horses. How did your interest in racing begin?
Through my connection with the family, Ed. Yeah, Dad was a farmer first and foremost, but trained horses as well, and on the farm, and we always had a lot of success. Well, he did. He was actually very good at it, and had quite a number of high-quality horses, and that whet my appetite at a very young age. So I was always at race meetings from quite a young age, as far back as I can remember.
So there's so many different avenues from a career point of view in the racing game. Why did you decide to become a steward?
It was by chance, really. I worked for the Queensland Turf Club. I started there when I was 18 years of age and did a myriad of jobs and worked with the handicappers. At one stage I felt that might be a path I could follow, working with the handicappers, but the then chairman of stewards, Andy Tyndall, approached me in my early 20s and asked me if I'd like to do a cadetship, and that stage was just part-time, working on weekends to complement my other working in the office during the week. But yeah, I loved it from then. It was an opportunity to be actively involved at the coalface with all the participants. That was good.
Someone that you worked with in Queensland back then and still do now, Kim Kelly, believe 2009 he picked up the phone, gave you a call to say that he was going to become the chief steward here in Hong Kong. Can you pick up the story from there? Yeah,
Kim, when he was appointed as chairman here, rang me and asked me if I would like to join him as he's effectively his deputy. And yeah, it didn't take long to give him a positive answer. So, of course, you know, I suppose like jockeys and trainers and certainly officials, no different. It ranks high on everybody's agenda to try and work in Hong Kong, and that was to me a career highlight to be asked to come here. So we jumped at the chance and haven't regretted it one bit.
So you've been here for over 11 years now. Let's talk about your role, because not only are you the Deputy Chief Steward here in Hong Kong, but you're also the Secretary of the Licensing Committee. Just give us a bit of an insight into what your work is involved here in Hong Kong.
Yeah, well, first and foremost it's the stewarding, and that's the primary role, but obviously working as the Secretary of the Licensing Committee, that's a very important role here, because the club prides itself on having high quality participants and having a variety, as I said, from various countries. So that's been most enjoyable, to identify emerging talent in different countries to try to maybe identify them at an early age to come here.
We're talking to you now because, of course, you are coming towards the end of your time here in Hong Kong. When you look back, are there any other memorable moments from a steward's point of view here in Hong Kong?
Probably my best memories of here have been what's happened on the racetrack, Ed. The horses, the jockeys, the participants, thinking back of some of the best horses, and certainly here at the moment, you know, it's you've got a sort of a massive grandstand here on race days. It's quite a weird feeling that there's no noise emanating from it, but you know, I can go back to the Derby when Abel Friend and Designs on Rome fought it out, and they almost lifted the roof off the place. And you know, Chinese New Year, race meetings, International Day, some of the most memorable times here, of course, when you have all that international participation, and that's what makes it so good here. Apart from the high quality of racing week in, week out, but just going to that next level of having the international participation, that's what's been probably the most memorable.
And the licensing committee side of your role, when you look back at your legacy, the big name jockey that's come to Hong Kong in the last 11 years is Joe. Just tell us about your role in getting Joe to Hong Kong, and when you look back at your time, and when you will look back on your time, is he someone that you'll be proud to say, I had an influence in bringing Joe to Hong Kong?
Of course, yeah. One of the jockeys that I recommended to come here early days was someone like Ty England, who didn't have any profile internationally, but Ty was a jockey I admired greatly in Australia for his not only his riding ability but his even temper, the way he always conducts himself the same, and did. And he came here and did extremely well, and unfortunately had to go back, and it's probably one of the lowlights of my career, the day that he was injured here. So you know, I think, you know, having had the opportunity, or give Ty the opportunity to ride here in those early days, but certainly Joe, as you say, is probably the highest profile jockey that's come here in the 11 years that I've been here. It took a couple of years to get Joe to take the bait, but we communicated very regularly. He came here and rode in a IJC, and obviously showed his wares then, but obviously everybody knew how he was shooting the lights out in Singapore, and I think Joe just needed to find the right time for him to come, and when it was the right time, he put his hand up and was gratefully accepted here as a participant, and he's been a wonderful addition. But you know, you're always looking for the next jockey, and I think it's sometimes difficult to get the real high-profile jockeys from some countries because they've worked so hard to get that number one or number two position. They've got the choice of the best horses, they're winning group races. It's a hard decision to make sometimes to move away from that. So we've quite deliberately, and the licensing committee have been very, very supportive and good to me, but they've always encouraged us to go and look for an emerging jockey.
So you've been a vital member of the racing industry both in Australia and here in Hong Kong for over 40 years now, Steve. Beyond that then, what does your future look like in the racing industry?
Well, I want to stay in the racing industry, Ed, but I will just take a bit of a breath when we get back home. Glenys has said that I'm forbidden from retiring, so because I'd be too much of an annoyance around the house full time. So I'll take that on board. And,
we don't want you to retire either, Steve. We still want to work with you.
So I'll be certainly looking to stay in the racing industry in some capacity, Ed, but what that might be, whether it's in the same role that I'm in now, that's, you know, we'll see. But I've quite deliberately not made any decisions. We'll get back, get set up properly, and then sort of make some decisions there further down the track.
And you mentioned Glenys. You and Glenys have got your family back in Australia. You've also got 3 grandkids, and I believe another one on the way.
Yep.
Being so far away from here in Hong Kong, are you looking forward to going back and having more family time?
Yeah, of course. People have asked me about what it feels like to be going back, and I've described it as bittersweet. The bitter being I'm sad to leave here, the race club, everybody here, but of course to go back, to be closer to our family and friends back in Australia will be wonderful. So that's the sweet part.
hard to cram 10 or 11 years into 5 or 6 minutes there. I think Ed did a good job, and great to hear from Steve. Got into trouble last time, Tom, because when we spoke about Steve, it sounded like I was retiring. He's not retiring. He's just going back to Australia. But some great memories and some nice old photos to look back on there as well.
Absolutely. I mean, he's been a huge asset for Hong Kong racing for over a decade now. He's such a generous and caring personality. The jockeys love him, and he plays such an important role. In that role as the secretary of the licensing committee, you've got to be that pipeline and in terms of finding the next generation of jockeys and trainers and getting them to Hong Kong. And you know, that means you have to have your pulse on world racing, which is something he's done incredibly well, and we wish him the best as he goes back to Australia. Absolutely.
Yeah, and very approachable, and everyone tell he's very likeable, as he put up with me asking him stupid questions over the last 3 or 4 years. So following on from Steve is Terry Bailey, who slips into the role. Terry's been with us for a couple of months now, I think.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. He's had a bit of handover with Steve. Gets to learn, you know, what can be a tricky jurisdiction, a lot of intricacies in Hong Kong. He's obviously got a hell of a lot of ability, Terry. He's had high-profile roles as the Chief Steward of Racing Victoria in Australia. He was Chief Steward in Singapore before coming here. And he steps in as Secretary of the Licensing Committee now, and he's already made an impact with the recruitment of Ruan Meyer from Singapore. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does going forward, and I'm sure he'll do it well.
Absolutely. We wish Steve well as well. Not retiring, just moving on. He had a relatively quiet night. There's one interesting race he had to deal with on Wednesday night at Happy Valley, but otherwise it was on the quieter side. All right, up next for us in part 2 of the show, we're looking at the jockeys and trainers' title races as we approach halfway through the season.
Ma dogon say.龍馬精神。萬事要義。身體健康。
Our Chinese New Year meeting comes up a week on Sunday, and our multi-talented jockey is there promoting the fixture. Tom, that was very good.
I really enjoy that. I think that's one of the better ones we've done.
Kung Hei Fat Choi. They didn't say that one. It's the only one I know, though. But Happy New Year when we get there, of course. All right, we're not looking ahead to the Chinese New Year Cup just yet. What we are looking at, though, as we approach halfway, it's meeting number 44 of the season of 88 on Saturday. So this is our halftime report, if you like. We'll start off with the jockeys. And at the moment, Joe Moreira is a long way clear with 4 wins at Happy Valley again on Wednesday night. 84 plays 57. You mentioned this at the start of the show, Tom. His record is 170, so he keeps up this pace. He's going to blow that away.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a chance to knock that off. He's been in amazing form this season, and I didn't expect to be such a discrepancy between Joe and Zach at the top. I thought they'd be a bit more level, but Joe's got the support from the top 2 stables. He's had 22 winners each for Casper Founds and John Size, whereas Zach Purton has 1 winner between the 2 of them, and that's really the difference at the moment. And obviously Zach has support from a broader range of stables underneath, but doesn't have that same level of success. So, you know, he's going to need to turn it around in the second half of the season. And we know he can. He came back from 15 down in April in 2017-18 season to win the title. So, you know, he just can't let this margin get any greater.
No, all right. Well, we actually spoke to Zach earlier on the week about the current title race, and this was before Wednesday night in actual fact, just to get his view and where he thought the season stood at this point in time.
Probably looks like it's over at this stage. Joe's had all the support so far this season. He's been riding for all the stables that have been on fire at the right times and been able to make the most of those opportunities. So he's got a nice gap, and I'd prefer to be in his position.
And you hit the nail on the head to a certain extent, Tom, in terms of if Joe's riding for John Size and for Casper, the top two stables at the moment, as long as they keep providing the winners, then it's very hard to bridge that gap. I think Danny Jeune is Zach's most profitable connection, if you like, at the moment. He had a nice winner on Wednesday night with Grateful Heart, but unless the winners start coming, a flood of them from another stable, it's very hard to make up that sort of ground, isn't it? Yeah,
and it's certainly going to be challenging, given Casper and John are going to be fighting it out for the trainers' title, and both want to win it. So they're both going to be throwing everything at that challenge. And if Joe gets the pick of their rides, well, he's going to keep finding winners, and it's going to be very, very difficult for Zach to bridge the gap. So, you know, as you said there, he'd rather be in Joe's shoes, and that's fair enough as well. Yeah, never say never. The white flag hasn't been waved just yet. Too long to go. Absolutely. Outside of the top two, it's quite a good battle then for that third spot. Karis Teaton, you've got Alexi Bedell, and Jerry Chow is absolutely flying as well. Yeah, and don't forget Vincent Ho, he's in that mix too. There's probably a group of 4 of them who are all around that same sort of level. Karis has come back to the field just a little bit. He's been a clear third in the past few seasons. But the addition of Alexi Bedell to the full-time ranks, he's made a huge influence, and he's been getting a lot of opportunities and riding winners. And it'll be really interesting to see what Ruan Meyer does when he comes into here. He's another lightweight jockey who's obviously had a lot of success in Singapore. He's leading the championship there at the moment. So he'll take a lot of opportunities as well, and we'll see that probably second tier of jockeys, continuing to get winners. All right, okay, that's the jockeys then. As far as the trainers are concerned at halfway, well, Casper fans absolutely flew out of the gates at the start of the season, slowed up a little bit through January, where John Size has put a little bit of pressure on, but with a winner in the final race on Wednesday night, he stretched that lead out to 2 again. Yeah, it's certainly looking ominous. John Size, last season he really struggled with his PPGs. They weren't really performing quite as we've seen them in the past. But he's had them going well this season. We've seen Sight Success, we've seen Fantastic Way last Sunday, and we've seen Courier Wonder, who looks the most exciting of those 3. If he's getting those PPGs up and firing, he can rattle off 3, 4, 5 winners in a season, and they're provide the backbone for winning a championship. Casper's still got a lot of horses to come through, but a lot of them are handicapped out. But he'll be throwing everything at it, so it'd be great to see these 2 fight it out. Yeah, and they did actually. John Size has won the title 11 times, Casper with 3, but his last win, they actually tied, him and John Size tied for that. Casper had 3 winners on the final day, but won it on countback, so these do have history as well. So that should be a fascinating clash between the 2 of them. Again, just from a couple of days ago, we caught up with Casper at Trackwork to get his thoughts on the Premiership so far.
He's absolutely flying, and good on him. I'm glad he's chasing me hard, and it's going to be an exciting finish. I still think I've got a lot of ammunition left. Obviously John is a great trainer, and he's had so many premierships, and I've just had a little bit of a frustrating run the last few weeks. As you know, I've had about 8 or 9 seconds, but that's racing. Hopefully that'll turn around. Problem is, when you're in a handicap system, each point counts, and every time you just get crucified, when they're running seconds and you're not getting the winning result. So we just got to keep trying. I'm sure I'll be there come the last few meetings, and I'm just going to give it my best. And good luck to John, good luck to Cassipa, and may the best man win.
May they indeed. Casper's also got a night. You're talking about the PPGs. Master Fay, who won very impressively first up. He's the sort of horse that he'd be hoping, I'm sure, that could rattle off one of those sequences you were talking about before. Yeah, it certainly needs that sort of crew of horses to sort of, get some momentum and pick it back up. He's only had a couple of winners in the last month, whereas I think John Size has had about 14 or 15. So he needs to build that momentum up after such a fast start. But, he's a quality trainer, and he can do that. Yeah, and the likes of Rise High back in the fold as well. Great to have good horses like that. Again, so outside of the top 2, I think Francis Loy deserves special mention, not just for his handling of Golden 60, but he really has picked up and carried on from his excellent year last year. Yeah, we see Ricky Yu had a peak season and has dropped sort of back down the pack a little bit, but Francis has stayed right up there even when we thought his team had probably been maxed out, which just goes to show you how much he's come on as a trainer, and it's not just Golden 60. He's doing a great job, and you can see that with his contenders in the 4-year-old series. And the other one I want to give a shout out to is Frankie Law. He's had a bit of a bounce back season as well, and it's great to see him back up there again. All right, there you go. That's basically at halfway, the half-time report for the trainers and jockeys. The jockeys looks a little bit more cut and dried, but harder to bridge that gap for Zach, but the trainers very much still plenty to play for. This is the diary, how it looks. We're at Sha-Tin this weekend on Saturday. Saturday racing at Sha-Tin with 3 races on the all-weather. Come on, races 6, 7 and 8. No, 5, 6 and 7. 3 races. They're all together in the middle of the programme anyway. You'll get the idea when you have a look at the card. Wednesday back at Happy Valley. Then it's Chinese New Year meeting, the Cup. That is a week on Sunday. It's also Valentine's Day as well. So of Saturday's programme, Tom, we won't go into full details in every single race, but were there any horses in particular that caught your eye?
Yeah, certainly one horse, Joyful Fortune in race 8. He won like a group horse on debut at the end of last season and has had 2 runs this campaign and hasn't quite fired, but he's been transferred from David Hall and he's gone over to Tony Cruz and he's been trialling the house down. So Joe Moreira jumps on Saturday and it'll be really interesting to see what he's capable of. It looks like he was a horse who could, go to the top and, with going to the Tony Cruz yard, it looks like he might be capable of that.
Yeah, another horse, actually, quick mention earlier on the programme. I thought Sea of Life, he's won his last 2 for Francis Lowe and Vincent Ho. He looks pretty progressive. I thought he might go close again as well. Yeah,
stepping up to the mile in that class too. It's a pretty even sort of race. It's only 8 horses and I think you can put a line through 3 of them already. So he's certainly going to have a chance.
Great stuff. Thank you as always, Tom, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks very much.
All right, that's the show. Thanks for watching. We're going to leave you this week as we build up to that Group 1 weekend at the end of the month. We'll have a look at a couple of classic replays over the next few weeks with the Queen's Silver Jubilee Cup from 2015. So this is the second leg of the Hong Kong Speed Series. And this was Able Friend ambling to victory under Joe Moreira for John Moore. So enjoy this. We'll see you again on Saturday. We'll bring all the action from Hong Kong direct to you.
Able Friend is hemmed away on the inside of Gold Fun, then Rewarding Hero and Ambitious Dragon, the winner of this race 2 years ago, is back at the tail of the field as they travel up to the turn. They've gone along at a good enough pace, and it's Secret Sham in front from Beauty Flame and Divine Calling as they turn the corner. Then Real Specialist from Dan Excel Dunduttle. Barrera will ride for luck on Able Friend along the inside as Beauty Flame races to the lead. It's Beauty Flame a half in front. Able Friend is squeezing off the fence. Here he comes, Beauty Flame in front. Able Friend gets the run and quickly races to the lead. Gold Fun is running on the outside. He's different class, Able Friend. Pulls away to win the Queen's Silver Jubilee from Beauty Flame and Gold Fun.